Welcome in, everyone. Today we're diving into a love story that I think really captivated I think a lot of people in pop culture, and that's the story of Liam Payne and Cheryl Cole.
Yeah.
It's a story with more layers than a chart-topping single.
Right.
And we're going to kind of peel back all those layers and really try to understand what made this pairing so fascinating.
Yeah, and I think with Liam's recent passing, it feels very timely to kind of go back and revisit this part of his life. And I think, we'll get into the sort of intricacies of their relationship, but I think it also is kind of reflective of larger conversations that we have in society as well.
Totally. And, for those who might not be as familiar, Liam and Cheryl's story really is intertwined with the world of the X Factor.
Mm-hmm.
It all began back in 2008 with a 14-year-old Liam making his debut.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
On the show.
Yeah. And, on the judging panel at the time was Cheryl. She was already a household name, obviously, from Girls Aloud and being a judge on the show. But I think importantly, she was also married at the time to Ashley Cole, the footballer.
Right. And that is a detail that I think, looking back, knowing how their paths intertwined adds just such an interesting layer to that first meeting.
Yeah.
Almost as if, like the seeds were sown in a way there on that stage.
Totally. And I think, you can't help but think about kind of like the power dynamic at play there as well. That would continue to be part of their story, right? You have Cheryl, who's, the successful woman in the industry, and Liam, who is just, starting out at this point. It's such a, kind of an interesting dynamic to think about.
Yeah. And I mean, even more interesting, I think, as we kind of move through their story, because fast forward just 2 years later, Liam is back on the X Factor, and of course, this time around, One Direction is formed.
Right.
But what's really interesting is now Cheryl is single.
Yes.
Having divorced Ashley Cole.
The landscape has shifted.
Completely. And Liam is on this whole other level of fame now.
Totally.
So it's not your typical, two people kind of entering a relationship.
No, not at all.
So we have this unusual first meeting. We have the age difference. We have the power dynamics of the music industry. And now we have this major change in both of their relationship statuses.
Totally.
And this is all before they're even officially an item.
Right.
So it's no wonder that people were like, what is going on?
It's like a real life drama unfolding. You can't make this stuff up. But it's interesting though, because it wasn't like an immediate whirlwind romance, right?
Right.
There's this simmering period before things really start to heat up.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
And that brings us to 2015, which again, huge year. Well, at least for Liam and Cheryl. But not in the way I think a lot of people would expect. They have a chance encounter, and you guessed it, where?
Where else?
The X Factor finale. At the X Factor finale. And remember, at this point, Cheryl's actually married to her second husband, Jean-Bernard Fernandez Versini.
Right.
So it's the X Factor has become this
I know,
recurring motif in their story.
It's wild. Yeah, it's like this weird touchstone for them.
It is.
It keeps popping up. And what's so interesting is that Cheryl's second marriage ends shortly after that finale.
You can't help but wonder if that little
I know,
seemingly insignificant meeting
totally
planted a seed.
Yeah, for sure.
For what was to come, because the following year, 2016,
big year,
huge turning point.
Yeah.
Cheryl finalizes her divorce with Jean-Bernard, and then boom, not long after that, news breaks that her and Liam are officially an item.
They are. It's confirmed.
Officially.
Out in the open. I remember it was like a frenzy. Everyone was talking about it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It was everywhere,
And it wasn't just the fact that they were together, but the 10-year age gap all of a sudden became
of course,
this huge point of conversation.
Totally.
It really, I think, ignited a lot of conversations about societal expectations.
For sure.
Challenging norms.
It really did. Yeah, and it's interesting because their relationship, I think, became this kind of cultural touchstone where people had such strong opinions, on both sides of it. And I think it speaks to the impact that it had on just our larger conversations about age and relationships.
Totally. It wasn't just a celebrity romance. It really did.
It wasn't just gossip.
Become this conversation starter.
It became a thing.
Yeah.
Totally. But, amidst all of that, the public scrutiny and everything, they welcome their son, Bear, in 2017.
They do.
a baby.
Yeah. And I feel like
Instead of go whole.
in a lot of ways, Bear's arrival kind of
Yeah.
shifted the narrative again.
Yeah.
Because, parenthood does that.
Of course. Especially when you're in the public eye.
It just does.
Like the focus shifts a little bit, I think, from
Really.
the unconventional beginnings of their romance
Mm-hmm.
to their shared commitment as parents now.
Yes.
That becomes...
Yeah. But like a lot of love stories,
Right.
theirs wasn't without its heartache. In 2018, just a year after Bear was born, they announced their separation.
Oh, wow.
And I just remember it felt
Yeah.
kind of poignant.
Yeah, especially given like the newness
Yeah.
of being parents.
It was a lot.
Like they had just gone through so much.
They really had.
But one thing that I will say, like during their breakup announcement and everything, like they both made it very clear that Bear was their priority,
Yeah.
that they were committed to co-parenting. And I think they really leaned into that. You know what I mean?
And that's where I think their story takes another really interesting turn.
Yeah.
Because despite the end of their romantic relationship,
Right.
they really did seem to figure out this co-parenting thing in a way
I agree.
that I think a lot of people really admired.
For sure. And I think
Yeah.
it speaks to their commitment to
Totally.
each other in like a different way,
Yeah.
And Liam actually, there's a quote from him where he talks about Cheryl giving him full autonomy
Oh, wow.
to live his life knowing that Bear was her priority.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that to me, I think speaks volumes about
Right.
the level of respect
Holy
and understanding
Yeah.
that they were able to cultivate even after the
Yeah.
romantic
Yeah.
aspect of their relationship.
It's so true. It's so true. And it wasn't easy, I mean, especially with Liam,
Right.
having subsequent engagements and being in other relationships. Like,
Yeah.
it's not easy to navigate that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it seemed like through it all, their dedication to co-parenting remained. And I think that's really special.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, what do you think contributed
What do you think?
to that, success?
Yeah.
Because there's so many
Hey,
celebrity couples
that
who don't make it work.
Yeah.
Is it just the shared experience of
Yeah.
this immense fame that they both
Yeah.
experienced?
Yeah.
Or is it just this unconditional love for their son?
Right.
Or was there this really deep-seated respect that transcended the romantic love
Yeah.
they once had?
Right. I don't know. It's a tough one. I don't know. It's like you said, there's so many factors, right?
Yeah.
And who knows the real answer? But I think regardless of what it was, it just speaks to their commitment to,
Yeah.
creating a stable environment for their son,
Cool.
even amidst
Yeah.
all the other evolutions in their lives.
Right. And it's their lives were still, their stories weren't over yet. And tragically, Liam's story was cut way too short
Yeah.
earlier this year, which is it's just such a heartbreaking reminder of just,
It really is.
life's fragility.
Especially at such a young age.
Yeah. And it's you can't
That's
help but look back on his legacy. And
It's true. And it's it adds such a layer of complexity to their story, too.
Absolutely.
Because it's when we look back at Liam's legacy, you can't separate that from
right.
his public persona, his relationships.
Right. And especially, I mean, it all began on that X Factor stage.
I know.
It's kind of crazy to think about that.
It's surreal.
That was the backdrop for this,
Yeah.
love story that in a way captivated so many.
Totally.
And then to think that's how it started,
And it makes you think about the lasting impact, right? How will their relationship be remembered?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a cultural moment in a way.
It was.
It really was.
It challenged conventions, it sparked conversations, and it
totally.
went beyond just
It wasn't just entertainment news.
it was more than that.
It was a moment.
It really was, yeah. And I think it reminds us too that even with the fame and the fortune,
Yeah.
real life still happens
Yeah,
with all of its messiness and beauty.
totally. And sometimes those stories are,
Yeah.
even if they're bittersweet, they stay with us
They do.
long after the headlines fade.
They really do. It's true.